All right. Now this one, break it down real.
You're gonna be real sissy.
Let's get it.
You're gonna talk about all those doubts.
Coming up, bubbling over. Okay, grab your ice picks, dig in, clean. All right. Here we are back for round two, part two, as promised. We took a long break for the holidays and, had to deal with family holidays, etc. It's a lot of fun, but we want to come back and recap the business stuff, which we did in part one. Check that out if you haven't yet. So in the last recording, we touched on all things business related and the new developments in our careers, or excuse me, communities, and how we're building those out. But in the midst of all of that, there has been a whirlwind of personal growth and development taking place beneath the surface. So this is that episode where you get to see into our brains maybe a little bit of the neurotic spaces that we inhabit at times. So let's just dive in. It's been a hell of a month. So I mean, should I just start?
You sound like you're on a roll, so please, by all means, and I'll
Okay.
call you out where I feel like I need to.
Stop me if I get carried away. There's a high likelihood. So for me, December was rough. Kids were sick for way too long. By the time they got back into school, it was time for them to be out of school. It was kind of a joke. I had planned in my mind that I would be able to do a lot more marketing for the upcoming community, knowing that January was going to be when I would introduce the paid membership. I was supposed to start raking in the cheddar, for January because I've been putting money into this for quite some time now, and I need something coming back in to balance things out. So in my mind, December was the month to not only get all my paid plan stuff set up, which we talked about in the last episode, but to really lean into the marketing, to make the YouTube videos, to be posted on Instagram, to be slapping this face up all over social media, telling people about the carnivore wellness community. And that just did not happen. I didn't have the mental, physical, emotional capacity to do it, caring for two sick kids, battling my own kind of version of whatever sickness they got into, and then just feeling so drained and exhausted as a mom, as the household manager, handling all the pieces around Christmas time. Let's not forget, like the holidays are going to keep on coming despite any, setbacks, illness, or whatever. So here I am, like barreling through December, watching the days tick by, not getting the things done that I need to get done, and just kind of inside freaking out. Internally, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be able to show up for myself. I'm not going to get this done. Bare minimum, I have to get this paid plan set up. Like, I can't just let this free membership stuff slip into January and then all of a sudden February I'm charging money. That makes no sense. So I was really kind of hitting that panic mode. And even now, I feel the need to take a deep breath. It all worked out, you know? And what I found was that I was able to show up for myself and I was able to get the bare minimum done. I had to accept that it was only going to be the bare minimum. I got those paid plans up. I got that marketing copy up. I've got it in a few different places. I built out the extra spaces I needed to round out my paid plan, but that is it. There was no Instagram push. There were no YouTube videos created. There was none of that forward momentum, that planting of seeds of the marketing that I want to harvest in the spring didn't happen. So that was really a challenge for me. And it kind of had me spiraling through several days, several moments of self-doubt. Just what am I doing with this community? Is it going to work out? I've put all this money in. I've convinced my husband to believe in me. Like, I've got to see this through. But here I was just really left with, feeling like I'm on empty and not having very much to give. But all that said, as the days ticked down and it was like maybe the last 2 weeks of December, I realized I've got just a handful of days left, because Christmas is coming and that day's taken up and that day's taken up. And looking at my husband's work schedule, I knew how much I was going to be solo parenting. So I somehow dug deep on some of those days when I put the kids down for a nap, and I absolutely did not feel like coming into this office to sit down and work. I did it anyways. And I showed up for myself and I sat down and I got it done. Now, what I found interesting was that when I came in here and once I'd sat down and put aside my irritation that I had to do this and carve out this space and time, it actually was easy. Like, the work itself came very naturally, and I was able to just work through it and get stuff done and always left feeling really good about it and very productive with just, 2.5, 3 hours worth of time. So I stacked up a few of those days, probably 4 or 5 of those days, where even though I didn't want to and I felt drained in other areas, I came in here and I showed up for myself. Now, for me, that's super huge because I really believe that, in my life experiences have shown me that I will show up for others, but that if something has to give, it's my stuff.
Mhm.
If I have to cut
Oh,
corners,
that
it's gonna be
hits.
cutting my own corners and selling myself short. And man, y'all, that is a terrible thing. That's a terrible way to live, but that's how I've been operating for a long time. So I really was operating out of fear for the month of December, being fearful that I wouldn't be able to show up for myself, being fearful that I wouldn't get this stuff done and that I was going to take everyone else's needs and put them before mine and before the communities. And that was scary to me. That really felt like, "Ooh, I really don't wanna bring that with me into the new year. It doesn't serve me. How do I get past that?" And really, it was just those single moments of intention of instead of going and turning on Netflix and laying on the couch and calling it the whole day a wash, it was, "No, let me just go sit in there and do one thing." And that, of course, led to more productivity. But I did that on several occasions, and I told you, sissy, it's like, I showed up for myself, and I really that showed me something that I really didn't know I would do. I didn't know I had that in me. So for me, that was probably my biggest growth point this last month in dispelling that self-limiting belief that I would let my own pieces fall before I let everything else fall. And guess what? Everything still got done because 'cause I'm super awesome. I just sell myself short all the time. But, like, it all got done. At least the bare bones minimum. No, the YouTubes didn't get made. No, the Instagram posts, etcetera, didn't get made. Whatever, that's fine. I got done what I had to get done.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at specifically like the last 2 weeks, um, I traveled for the holidays and then I came back, and because of the shared custody schedule, I had not seen my kid very much beforehand. And so then I got her back as soon as I was back in town, like literally, like as soon as I drove to town, I drove straight to my ex-wife's house and picked her up. And,
Mhm,
and then it was our Christmas, our version of Christmas,
mhm.
delayed. And then she was still on winter break, and so that was this whole, the last 2 weeks essentially was childcare central.
Yeah,
Um,
because you were watching other people's kids as well.
right, because my community does not have promote income yet, so I still have to make money.
Ah, I know, right? Yeah. Mhm,
And luckily, I don't have a ton of people coming to my meetings yet, so there's not a lot of like I don't have to worry about the background noise, and I still showed up and I still attended all of my meetings in addition to jumping in on some of the evening meetings that Stephanie hosts,
mhm,
so that we could do some extra work together. So even though those on the outset looked like weeks where I wasn't going to get a whole lot done,
mhm,
I was actually very impressed, and it gave me confidence too in just what the kind of product that we're pushing out,
mhm,
and the value of the meetings. In that I showed up and I've edited 2 chapters of my book in the last like 2.5 to 3 weeks because I started chapter 1 maybe the week before Christmas.
mhm.
Um, and that's amazing to me because editing the book was something I had been dragging my feet on. And I had talked to you
Yeah.
about that so many times.
Mhm.
Like, I tried to convince myself that, like, I would like editing, just anything
Yeah.
I could do to get myself motivated to like just start. And
Mhm,
granted, I know the beginning of my book is some of the trickiest. Most writers will tell you that that first chapter is one of the hardest to get right. I mean, it has to do so much heavy lifting. You've got
mhm,
to set the tone for the book. You got to make the promise to the reader. You've got to engage them in such a way and entice them that they want to keep reading. Because
mhm,
if you don't grab them in that first chapter, like most people aren't going to read chapter 2.
mhm,
I certainly don't. Like if I don't like the like vibe of a book after the first chapter or so, like
mhm,
couple thousand words is all I'm going to read before I decide whether this book is really for me or if I thought it was going to be something different than it turned out to be. So I was really intimidated by that process. Even though I had talked to other writers, I had a little formula I had written down of like the steps I
mhm,
was going to do. And it ended up being one of my other writer friends at my in-person library sponsored writers group who said that she was loving editing. And I'm like, okay, if Kristen loves editing, I can too.
Yeah.
That got
I
me
remember you
started.
like, "So maybe I'll just love it. Maybe I can really get into it."
Love it, and it's like gritting my teeth and just hoping that I can just do it.
Mhm,
And so I am super proud of myself for the way that I'm just showing up consistently and just trudging forward as best I can in the moment.
mhm,
I'm seeing so much progress in my own writing and my own confidence, even though we don't have like paid members yet. So like quantifiable like values for like, is the business working?
mhm,
You might question that from the outset, but then when I looked at, the fact that our finances are set for the whole year, when I
mhm,
did our like financial business assessment, we can cover all of our expenses to continue to run the business for the rest of the year.
mhm,
And to think that I can get this book edited and done, in that time, then
mhm.
heck yeah, it's worth the investment.
Yeah, exactly,
You
exactly.
know?
And don't forget when you got back, you were still battling an illness that you'd gotten while
Oh
you
yeah, I
were
came
gone.
back with COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that little thing, like the fatigue, that just like,
Yeah.
oh, sluggishness, not feeling good. So it kind of took you a few days of like, oh gosh, like Sissy, I don't feel motivated. I feel like I should be doing this. You're like, I just need like one little win today. I just need to do like one or two things. And we kind of worked on that together. I was like, all right, well, why don't you just spend some time journaling? Like when in doubt,
Right.
journal. Like you gotta spend that self-reflection time. And then you came up with a couple of like easy to approach tasks that kind of got you back in the swing of things. By the end of the week, it was like you hadn't been doing childcare all week. You've been totally working on your book and moving your business forward, which was
Right.
wild to witness.
Yeah. And then the other piece too that I kind of had to deal with over the past few weeks
Mhm,
was the sort of contrast of what Stephanie is interested in doing and wanting to do for the business and feels inspired to do. Like she, made the landing page for this new January special and put together the ConvertKit email things and, whatever. She knows she's a whiz at all of that stuff. So she's over there doing, 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 and I'm over here like, I wonder, like, should I be doing something? Like, I hate that, like, she's doing all that, and like, what am I doing for the business? And
mhm,
I had to really sit with that and just remind myself that it's not about doing for the sake of doing. It's
mhm,
having that inspired action. It's feeling that drive and that motivation. So like I made a couple of like social media posts. Like I made one about how I was using my noise canceling headphones so I could get work done while there's
mhm.
toys scattered everywhere across my living room because three kids were here,
Yeah,
you
very
know?
relatable post, by the way.
Yeah, and then I made a little video when I was hiking on New Year's Day and talking about the challenge of like, writing a book one page at a time, climbing a mountain one step at a time.
Mhm,
So just looking for those opportunities. That was something I did stay mindful of over the like holiday break was
mhm,
okay, so maybe I'm not like actively posting or actively working on anything, but are there little videos that I could take that I could utilize later? Like I have a video of my cat drinking out of this little teacup he wants us to fill up with water
mhm.
every single day in the bathroom. And I don't know exactly what copy I'm going to put with that yet, but I've got the video. So when
Right,
the inspiration comes, I
right.
have that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was another big like piece for me is like letting go of this feeling that I need to show a crossed off to-do list in order to feel like I've been productive in the biz for the business.
Mhm,
Knowing that a lot of what I contribute to the business is ideas. I was in kind of in the background fleshing out this, book club idea. I've been brainstorming some of my coursework that I want to create and other content. And those are all in the planning stages. So there's not a whole lot to show for them, but I'm still doing it.
right.
I
And
was
you're
prepping
super
for our
helping.
business meeting and like the goals for the year that I thought we should strive for. I was looking at what writers conferences we might want to attend, that
Mhm.
sort of thing.
Yeah. And the help in target like redefining your target audience, like, kind of you and Stephanie collaborated, but you were kind of like, well, let's focus more on, anyone who has an idea and is at one of these stages in the writing process. So like you're the ideas person. And so it doesn't necessarily like your work input doesn't look the same as Stephanie's, and being okay with that, especially as people who like you and I are pretty achievement based, like very achievement driven. So to be able to find a way to make peace with that, that's important. Like that's a big step in your personal growth, to be
Mm,
okay with not having to be able to match, tit for tat tasks like that.
yeah. And then the other piece is something you referenced too, is just being patient with myself and the business
Mhm,
while we allow it to grow and just not resisting the urge to blow it all up. Because, as you go and travel for the holidays and people ask you, "Oh, what are you doing? How's the business going?" And having to say like, "Well, I don't have, this yet, but it's coming," and
mhm,
having to like really just dig into that self-confidence and belief that like what we are creating is valuable, that there
mhm,
are people out there that want it. It's just a matter of getting on the right screen in front of the right set of eyes, essentially,
mhm, mhm,
because I know what we have is valuable and I know we've priced it correctly.
mhm,
So, a lot of it is just like finding that way to be patient.
mhm,
And for me, that looks a lot like on a personal level, being willing to receive the help that I'm currently getting and
mhm,
not trying to mitigate my finances by trading more of my time for conventional work, allowing myself to still be free to do the business to the degree that I'm doing the business, because that's a big struggle for me, as I've talked about before. Like right
mhm,
now, I am being financially supported externally,
mhm,
and I supplement with the childcare, with pet sitting, with other things, but I am not earning my income at a, 9 to 5 job. I am focused on the writing, I'm focused on building the community. And so anything I take on takes away time for that. And that's really hard. That's a really tough place for me to be
mhm,
patient enough with myself to do it. I've had to do a lot of reframing around that, around, what that support really means for me, about
mhm,
how that is really supporting my relationship with my kid and my ability to spend that time with her.
mhm,
Otherwise, I would be having to seek childcare for her. That would mean less time with her. And
right,
I've still not adjusted to, how little I
mhm,
get on a shared custody schedule compared to being the full-time stay-at-home parent.
mhm,
So the thought of giving up even one more minute with her is heartbreaking. So
mhm,
knowing that and coming to terms with the fact that by accepting and receiving the help I'm being offered right now, however long-term or short-term that is, I
mhm,
need to be patient enough with myself
mhm,
to accept that, say thank you very much. That is, significant for me.
mhm.
And then put what I can into the business and into my book.
Right, right. And keeping that energy focused as opposed to dividing it, like you said, with some other kind of conventional trading time for money. Yeah.
I get antsy. I get so antsy with
Mhm.
it.
I'm
It
sure.
doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel comfortable to accept that kind of help. It's
Mhm,
something I've really had to like wrestle with. And even,
mhm.
maybe it's perfect timing with Christmas because then I was receiving gifts and stuff. So it
Right.
was a whole theme of receiving beyond what I feel like I've earned or
Yeah.
deserved or what
Mhm,
I could give back. There's a lot of issues or like beliefs I have about the reciprocity or the strings attached that I, get antsy or nervous about when I do accept help or I do accept gifts, financial or otherwise.
mhm,
And so this has been, with the Christmas time, it's been a season of me sitting back and saying, thank you so much. That
mm,
means so much to me. I feel very loved.
mhm. Right,
And letting that be enough.
right. Yeah, yeah, letting that be enough. That's key, and that's hard. That's hard.
And hard. God,
So
it's so
hard.
hard.
Yeah, it's so
Because I
hard.
want to be able to reassure these people who are supporting me, like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, this is directly leading to this, and I've already seen this change, but it's not here yet. And I
No.
can't guarantee that it's coming.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I can, but I can't,
Right,
like I know
right,
it's coming. I don't know on what timeline. I don't know to what extent.
right.
And
Yeah,
that's hard.
yeah, it's like we've put the seeds out in the field, we've watered them, conditions are right, but like, I don't know, what's your germination rate? What's going on under the soil? Like, are the roots really growing down deep like we think? When are those shoots like starting to emerge? Like, when do we see them? We don't know yet. But that growth takes time before you ever see anything pop above the soil level. And so we're kind of like, we're in that germination zone. Like, things are happening. We believe they are happening. We're not gonna be shocked and surprised when we start seeing results, but we're like a little like eager to see those results and to be able to give that confirmation to those around us who are kind of, sitting around tapping their thumbs, waiting like, okay, when's
I
it
know
coming?
you experienced that in discussions for your family's finances. I know it's
Yeah,
different than what I'm
yeah,
dealing with, but you had that same sort of like thing of like, but if you take away any more of my time to do the
mhm.
business, I'm not going to be able to grow it the way I need to.
Right. Yeah, I'll briefly touch on that. So, my husband, he's a nurse, and right now he's working PRN, which is kind of like you just pick up extra shifts as needed, but you usually get a higher rate. So, but he's working an hour and I don't know, an hour and 10 minutes away. So that's a big commute. And a lot of times when he works days in a row, he'll take our converted shuttle bus and he'll sleep overnight because shifts are 13 hours long. Like, doesn't make sense to drive back and forth. So it means he's already spending a good chunk of time away. He recently applied to a job at the VA, which of course everyone's, eyes and ears light up when we say the VA because, oh, great benefits, etc. But we finally got back the offer that they're willing to compensate him with, and it's just simply not enough. It's not enough to support our family as our family currently operates. So instead of him being able to take that job, because then he'd be working essentially more hours there because he'd also still have to pick up at the other hospital that's an hour and 10 minutes away to be able to, maintain our finances at the level that we need for the time being. But here I am, I'm like, "Okay, but let's just like, we just gotta believe in carnivore wellness, like, it's going to work out," but I just don't know on what timeline. I don't know when we're gonna hit that 4 to $6,000 a month mark where I'm able to pull out of the business. I mean, I've still got several thousand already in it that, like, I'd like to get some recoup before I start pulling out. Like, I wanna be able to maintain a base for the business before I start, drawing some income out of it. Granted, that's all up to me because it's just me. It's not, a partnership or anything. And there's not a huge overhead cost in running a community, but there are ongoing monthly expenses. And of course, like, even even I found out the other day filing taxes in my state, I have to file a compliance form. That's going to cost $310. And I have made squat diddly in my business, but I'm still expected to file this compliance form for $310. So it's like there are these ongoing expenses that are coming up, and I'm still not at that point where I'm profitable. And once the business is profitable, that will shift my husband's ability to take work at a lower pay, in a less stressful situation with better benefits. But we're simply not there right now. And so it's kind of been hard to see this opportunity to work at the VA and in his desired department, a much less stressful workload for him, and he'd be able to be home every night. And there's something to be said for that. But at the end of the day, we just can't afford to have him taking more time for work because that's even less time for me to sneak away from the kids, come in here and do stuff like I need to do for my community, which is already in my mind not enough time.
Well, and this is January, but May, June, July, August, they are just around the corner.
Yeah,
And you and I both will be the primary childcare providers for those daytime hours. Despite my shared custody schedule, anytime my kid is out of school, that those daytime hours are I'm responsible for covering. And I may be able to work out some compensation or whatever for some of that, but like I'm still the go-to,
yeah,
as are you. And we've got to figure out, before summertime, how we're going to navigate still managing our businesses
right,
while watching our kids. And more than likely, I will be watching other people's kids too.
right. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. And so, yeah, it seems like, oh, well, that's so far off, but it's really not because I started all of this back in September and here we are in January. Like, it happens quickly, this business development, but do the results come in quickly? And they don't. And that leads to some of that self-doubt. It just kind of all circles back to that key point at the beginning. It's like, if I'm not able to get stuff done, is it going to show up? And I guess that's another thing that I am still currently wrestling with, personal development wise, is really struggling with that mindset of you have to put in the work if you want the result. Now, some of y'all out there are probably like, yeah, done. No, but I don't know. Let's look at that belief. Like, is that really and truly the way things work? Or can you plant the seeds and get things set up and
That
have
sounds like capitalist propaganda to me nowadays.
right, right. Yeah, and so it's like, do how much of this is just going to take time because, seeds take a while to germinate? Or is it really because, oh, I'm not showing up, I'm not doing enough? Now, I can tell you from like an energy standpoint, I've been doing plenty. So at some point, I know those results are forthcoming. Maybe not as quickly as I'd like, but that's just part of navigating this space, and that's exactly why we're sharing our experiences here because I mean, I really feel like so many people are just having to fly blind on this initial phase of business development, especially in an online space. You just don't know how long it's gonna take. You hear the success stories, "I went from this to this in 3 months," or "this to this in 6 months." Well, great, goody for you, but that's not everyone's result. So, like,
Well, even when they say it took a year or 2, but, like, do you really feel that year or 2 when someone just reports that now they make, 6 figures and whatever? Like, you totally overlook the fact that it took them a year or 2.
right. And I do want to bring this up because like this is what I tell myself when I'm going through these times of struggling is so one of the people I really enjoy listening to is Layla Hormozy. She's got, she's launched and like 3 successful businesses. Right now, her latest business is, I don't know, valued at over $1 billion. It's like an acquisition business where they go in and help build out other businesses after buying in a small stake. Anyways, she talks about how the first year it's about eating shit. And it is a year of eating shit. And so you don't know what you don't know. And then you find out what you don't know. And you're like, oh shit. And then you have to learn it. And it's really hard. And you're like, oh shit. And then you're like, okay, now I need to refine who my target audience is. Oh my gosh, I totally don't know shit. And then you keep going. And the whole year is just eating shit. So let's just, reflect on that lovely piece of it, thought and remember that it's just the phase. Like we don't know everything. It is a struggle. It is a challenge, and you've just got to lean into that part of where we are in business development. Like it's gonna feel like eating shit for a long time. Hopefully not too long, but like a year. Like this very successful woman said, a year. Like, and she's a super hard working boss lady. Like maybe
Mm.
even a little bit longer than that for some of us, plebeians down here still having to do childcare on the side. So I think it's just a matter of keeping it in perspective and then not letting yourself get down because you're not living up to these expectations that may or may not be realistic, set by yourself or set by others.
So what is it that you do in the moment, like, to relieve that doubt?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes I relieve that doubt by taking one small actionable step. You
Mm.
know, sometimes it is simply get the thought out of my mind and reminding myself I am not my thoughts. I can have that thought and hold space for that thought without having to surrender to it. So sometimes for me, that looks like going and taking action. All right, I'm just going to go in here, sit down, and write out the journal prompts for the month and get them all scheduled to post on time. And that makes me feel better. It's like, okay, at least I've done something. Other times it is, practicing a self-care piece, like, listening to a YouTube, something I want to, or making sure I'm getting time at the gym. The other day, like I'd finally had the kids back at school. I went for a hike. Like I had a bunch of other things I could be doing, but I needed that, physical outlet. I needed to be outside, and that helped a lot too. Um, and then journaling is super big. Like if you don't journal, journal, y'all, because I mean, it's just the best way to take a real hard look at what's in there and to sift through the pieces and to set them back down in a way that feels organized so that you're not just running around with jumbled thoughts in your heads. So those are kind of my go-tos. Uh, but yeah, also just that big one of remembering I'm not my thoughts and knowing that I'm not gonna always feel that way. When my kids get all worked up and they're emotional and stuff, one of the things I'll tell them in those moments when they are totally losing it and screaming and melting down, I'm like, "Honey, you're not gonna feel like this for much longer. I know this doesn't feel good, but this feeling will pass. You'll feel better in a few minutes." And saying that to myself helps. It's like, "Look, honey, I know you're freaking out. I know you're panicking. I know you have all these fears and doubts, but like, you're gonna feel better in a minute and just let it go.
It
Don't
must
hold
have
it."
been like a week or so ago that I called you and I was like, today I'm being plagued with the self-doubt It came out of the blue. It's probably
Mhm,
hormonal. I
mhm,
know with all confidence that it is just going to be a phase and I just have to ride it out. And some of
mhm,
that is just acquired self-awareness from like
mhm,
being in this cycle enough times and seeing how it cycles through hormonally or not, you know,
mhm,
and and just realizing, like you said, that this too shall pass
mhm,
and we will get through it. The other piece that Stephanie is so great about reminding me, and I think this is another piece where partners are really helpful, is she's so good at calling out our wins. So like
mhm,
right before the holidays, she, sent me a text. I told her like, okay, I scheduled these posts to go up while I'm gone. And then, we set our meeting time for once we got back and scheduled a couple days to record some podcast episodes once we were back. Granted, we both came back from trips with COVID, so some of that didn't happen. But and she was just like, "Oh my gosh, I was just looking at our YouTube and our Spotify, and we have put out 6 videos already in these like 3 weeks since we launched." And it's like, "Oh my God, yes, we did that. Oh my goodness." And it's like you
heck yeah.
just forget because you get so bogged down in like, "Oh, this technology is not working," or "Oh, we don't have members yet. Oh, we don't know this isn't working the way we thought," or I'm
Mhm,
feeling lost and not sure how to handle like this difficulty. And
mhm.
sometimes you just have to step back for a minute and be like, I did.
Yeah, look at me over here getting stuff done. I love
Yeah.
that. That's such a good piece of advice, calling out your wins. And that's something I don't do enough of. And thankfully, you do that for me when I come to you and I'm like, oh, Susie, I'm not getting anything done. You're like, girl, you
Did
showed
you
up for
show up
your
for meetings?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Did
That's
you get the
enough.
page plan up? Yeah. Did you get this? Yeah. Okay, okay, okay. Like I am showing up. It is happening. It's just again managing those expectations that we put on ourselves.
And also allowing yourself to take that break when your body is screaming at you that you need that break.
That's
For
important.
you that was the hike. For me, it's sometimes hiking, it's sometimes a hot bath, it's sometimes just like vegging out on like meaningless TV. Like
Mhm.
it just depends what I need. And when I came back, from vacation sick, some of it was just like
Mhm.
camping out under a warm blanket.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then, gosh, I would love to touch on a couple of struggles, like actual struggles in the moment business development that I experienced over the last month because I've shared how frustrating it was, how I was already having self-doubt. I already felt short on time. I was already, over here fighting myself to get out of the living room and come in here to the office and work. So there was one day where I came in here and I knew I had to get this paid plan up. And so I went to go set the plan. And in that, setup, it prompts you to come up with your description, essentially what's going to be on your landing page of why this business is good, what it offers. Like this is your chance to pitch your product to a person who is interested and thinking about making a purchase. Like very key for you to get this right. I don't know if I got it right, but I felt pretty good about everything I had typed in there. I'd formatted it, put in pictures, like gone to Canva, like pulled up a couple little, like clips, things, like little images to throw in there. It looked great. It was bomb. I was like, yes, like I feel so good about this. Kids are still napping. I've been working on it an hour. Like I'm getting it. And then I clicked forward and I'm like, okay, yeah, click this. And I was like, wait, no, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't want to do that. So I clicked back and I lost all of that. The whole entire description, everything. I thought I was just toggling between like the step 1, step 2. No, it took me back out of the whole thing. And I had to go start the new plan, all the details, put all the details in, and then I had to remake all of this marketing copy. Granted, that's on me. I should have copy, pasted, saved, etc. Like I know that. But in that moment, I cannot tell you what a kick in the groin that felt like
And
because
Mercury in retrograde while we're trying to make businesses.
oh, it so was. And I even told you the other after my third little snap, I'm like, I'm so ready for Mercury to be out of retrograde because this is not helping me yet. So yeah, it was so frustrating in that moment. I like immediately texted Brett. I'm like firing off F bombs left and right. I'm like, this is so frustrating. I can't handle it. What am I supposed to do? I was just like, oh, I'm so mad. But I knew in that moment I could get up and walk away and I could pretend like I don't have to do it and I could blow it off and be mad, but like the only person to be mad at is myself. And guess what? I still have to get this done. So I took a deep breath and I just sat there and I did it again. the kids woke up as I'm trying to finish it up. So I'm like stressing, like wrapping it up over here. But you know what? Long and the short, I got it done. I had to do it twice, and it probably was better the first time, but whatever. I rage wrote it the second time and got it done. And in the end, like it's fine. Like the marketing, it's there, the copy's there. And that's what I had to do. But it was so incredibly frustrating. And
Mhm.
yeah, in those moments, like, you just have to decide, like, who are you showing up for? For yourself. I'm showing up for
Yeah.
myself. So, like, I know I just messed up and I just, kind of kicked myself when I was down, but whatever, like, I can pick myself back up and get myself through this. So I did. And then I had a little, like I mentioned, I was it in this recording, maybe the last one. I gifted my active members free access to the paid community because I want the community members in the community when other people pay to come join. So I gifted them all like the access link and sent that out. But several of these people were not able to fully activate it. So they were showing as pending. So they were not able to see the notifications or the Zoom links for the meetings, and they didn't have access to the book club materials. So that was really frustrating. And I was trying to troubleshoot it with some members back and forth. It wasn't going well. Long and the short, I had to get Mighty Network support roped in, and they had to do things on their end. Um, it was a really frustrating 2 or 3 days of realizing these people should have access, and then also kind of questioning, well, what about when people are paying? Are they going to have access? So, that's still kind of something I'm a little frustrated about and having to figure out and work through. But that was another area where I'm just like, it should not be this hard. I should be spending this time, working on marketing, building out the business, interacting on the community board versus having to sit here and message with Mighty Network support. So that was the second one. And then the third one, y'all, after this whole month of like knowing I needed to or the whole month of December, knowing I needed to focus on marketing, I finally like drop the kids off at school. I get all fresh and showered. I come in here and like sit down to record my YouTube, like do a little test. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And so I record this YouTube video and it is fire. I am just like spitting off everything I need to say. It's so succinct. I'm feeling really good. I'm not going to have to do any heavy editing. And then I, get done. I'm like, awesome. Oh, that was so good. And I go to edit it and there's no audio file connected with this video. It is just me going, and that was so incredibly frustrating because, what do you mean I just lost 28 good minutes of my life and I've got to go do it again off the cuff, still feel authentic, get it nailed down right, succinct, etc. Oh, it was so frustrating. Had to troubleshoot some things on my computer first. Again, Mercury was still in retrograde. And that's when I texted you. I was like, I'm so ready for Mercury to be out of retrograde, and then ended up re-recording it. But because of that frustration that morning, I didn't get around to editing it right after and getting it uploaded to YouTube like I could have, should have, maybe would have. So, it's like there are going to be setbacks of of that nature that
Mm.
just are kind of out of your control. Maybe they were in my control. Again, it's like, and you told me, you're like, "This is the universe telling you, you just need to be patient. You don't have to go working so hard for it. Clearly, you weren't supposed to have that first video for whatever reason." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I," but
Well,
it,
that and I kept reminding you, like, "You're right, sissy. This is where people quit. You're right. This is
yes.
hard. This is where people quit. This is why
Mhm.
people don't have this. This is why people don't aren't making bank on their businesses because they
Mhm.
quit. This is where I've quit before in my first business as a financial coach. Yep, this is really hard when you aren't
Mhm.
seeing those wins, when you aren't, getting the income you expect. And it's just like, yeah, this is
Mhm.
why not everyone does this.
Yes. Yeah, and that, I mean, that's such a good reminder, and I'm like, "Oh, I know. I know," like kind of seething in that advice a little bit, but it's so true. And it's like, I mean, you got to decide. Like in that moment when all my, like marketing stuff disappeared, it's like, all right, who are you showing up for? Like why are you doing this? Because if it matters, you're going to do it. You're going to show up for yourself. You're going to do what you need to do, even if it sucks. And so
Well,
yeah.
and there's two, it's like we have to remember, I always have to remind myself that like there are seeds we have already planted, right?
Mhm.
And those are already out there. Those are already germinating, doing their thing, right? So uh, there's also this concept of like, just because you aren't planting new seeds doesn't mean stuff isn't growing. You know,
Mhm.
there's different seasons for things. And I remember we had a phone conversation probably around one of these times where you were, panicking about one of
In
these
the whole
endeavors.
month, so I'm not surprised.
And we were talking about planting seeds in a field and,
Mhm.
how it just takes time and how you don't have to always be out there like messing with them. Sometimes you just plant them and then you have to let them do their thing under the ground and you won't see the results for a little while. And,
Mhm.
it's not just, you know, us because businesses don't work that way anymore. It's not just all like each one of us talking to individuals and that's the only way anyone knows about your business. There's algorithms. They're doing their thing. You've
Yeah.
got previous videos out there
Mhm.
and everything. So it's like if it doesn't get done in this one particular moment,
Mhm.
okay.
It
Like
is.
it's gonna be okay. You
Mhm.
still ultimately made the content. Whenever it gets posted is when it gets posted.
Right.
I believe that it's gonna reach the people it needs to reach when it gets posted. Maybe
Mhm.
you said something differently that's gonna, mean something to someone that you didn't say the first time around. Maybe because you weren't as like rehearsed, maybe you were more frustrated, maybe it came off more natural,
Right.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe you felt real like, and now we talk this, but then the second time you're and this, and then you just gotta show up and you know, like it made us more relaxed because then at that point you just
Gotten the
DGAF,
bubbly out.
and it's yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't
Mhm.
know, but it is what it is, and we can't stress about every little thing. It's just we'll go nuts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, but you made such a good point. It's like this is when people quit. Is when it feels like you've done the work that should be paying off. And you're
Yep,
looking around and there's no payoff yet. Like
yep.
that's when people quit. And so that's why we wanted to make sure that we talked about this latest round in two parts, part one, part two, business from the business angle, but then also from the behind the scenes, like mental, emotional state that we've been in as we've been navigating these big changes because it's not it's not nothing to have to sit with the difficulties and the doubt over and over and the fears around, am I going to be successful? Am I not? What does success even look like? Maybe success honestly looks like exactly what we're doing, showing up, continuing, even when we're not having results. Like, this is what success looks like. So, I don't know, just a shift again in those expectations can be really helpful.
Yeah, I got a gut check the other day I told you about where I had pulled a like tarot card pull and I
Mhm,
did this like journey spread and I thought it was going to tell me, I was asking the question about like my career and my relationships and that sort of thing.
mhm,
And all the cards that I pulled were all about self growth and my own personal internal work. And it
mm.
was like, for the card that was like, what's gonna be my like most area of like my best experience on this journey? And it's like the moon card, which is your subconscious and
Introspection, yeah.
introspection. And I'm just like, of course, of course.
Uh-huh.
Here I think I'm, starting a business
Mhm.
and all of that jazz. And what I'm really doing is, becoming a better human being or something, just more informed, more
Right.
self-aware and, pushing myself to grow in new and challenging ways and let go of these old belief systems and habits that no longer serve me. And here I
Mhm.
thought I was running a community.
Right, here we are thinking we're, like, turning into the future bosses of the world, like, creating, legacies. We're just growing as humans. We're becoming more enlightened individuals. We're just trying to be the best version of ourselves, and it just happens to take place in the form of we're growing businesses.
I mean, every you get to the point where it's like every challenge is a new lesson and that's how you look at life and it's like, well, I had to learn that one, I guess, or I had to do this somehow, so might as well be taught through challenge. You
Mhm.
learn much stronger through challenge than through just pure success. Like if
Yeah,
something comes easy, would you really value it?
right, right. Yeah. If it was just gifted to you, landed in your lap, like, would you even accept it? Would you even know what to do with it?
I mean, if you put one post up and you suddenly had 50 members, you'd be like,
Yikes-a-rama.
"What?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
so
we're doing it. We're figuring it out. I don't know that you can do one side without the other, which is why we are choosing to present both sides. The tangible business actions that we're taking
mhm.
And then also the undercurrents of managing our own thoughts, ideas, beliefs that
Mhm.
go directly alongside it. And I think that's how people are really successful. But
Right.
I think that's the part that's brushed over or not talked about very heavily.
Agreed.
Other than believe in yourself. Okay, effing how?
Right, what does that even mean? Like, come on. Like, how do you believe in yourself when you're, just a struggle after struggle or, when you aren't seeing what you are expecting to see or, you've got all these naysayers around you. It's like, come on. Let's really get into the nitty-gritty of it. And so, I don't know, hopefully this has been helpful for somebody. Hopefully this keeps someone from quitting. And I love this. You shared this with me the other day. It was a picture, maybe it was one of your cards and it said, oh, you probably remember better than me. There's not a crowd at the top or something like that. What was it?
At the edge.
At the
Mm.
edge. Yeah, there's never a crowd at the edge. And that's kinda where we are in this community building, like, we're at the edge, we're trying to bring people together, we're trying to build these successful businesses, we're trying to help people harness their greatest potential, like, we're not in a safe zone, we're not in the easy, like, toss a wide net, get the low hanging fruit kinda place. It's gonna be a little bit tougher, but guess what? Like, there's not that many other folks out here doing what we're doing comparatively, and
Yeah,
even if there
competition
are,
is
like,
low.
you're
Mhm.
still yeah, we're still on that edge. So, yeah.
At least I have you, sissy.
I know, thank God we have each other and our hours-long conversation where pretty much every single one we're like, "Oh, we should have recorded that." So now it's become, "Let's remember to record that." Be sure and
Right.
talk.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad we recorded this one, and like you said, I hope someone out there, hears any little nugget of wisdom that we've had to share
Yeah,
or
so we've had to
whatever
hard
wisdom.
won wisdom.
Who
Yeah,
are we?
I know. At least some commiseration, like, if nothing else, like, it's the year of eating shit. Let's just eat shit together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All
All
right.
right,
Well, this
well,
has been a
thanks,
good one.
sissy. Thanks for sharing with your struggles and your doubts and your wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotta call out your wins too, right?
Mhm.
Good one.
Right.
All right. We'll wrap it up.